We are live from Laguna Beach. We're back in the Ben Reinberg I Own It studios today with a very talented guest who I'm very excited to speak with. She is a self-image coach who has an uncontrollable passion to inspire women to live the most extraordinary life. Tonya Leigh, welcome to the show. You own it. And that's why you're on this show. So welcome and thank you for spending some time with us today to share your knowledge with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Great. Well, let's get right into it. So, part of the self image manifesto is the line, we don't fix ourselves, we create ourselves, which I love that line. Uh, it's a profound idea that I've not heard stated so simply before. Could you dive deeper for me into what you mean by create ourselves and how you've gone about pursuing this with your company? Is it the School of Self Image?
Yes, that's our company.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for starting off with this question. It's one of my favorite things to think about. And I want everybody listening just to think about just when you think something is wrong with me, and we all have our different version of that, right? But I'm broken, something's wrong with me. I want you all just to notice like how that feels to you and how you show up when you're in that energy. Chances are you're showing up in such a way to keep reconfirming something's wrong with me because that's how our brains work. We're always working to prove ourselves true. And when I figured this out, Ben, I was like, wait a minute. If I can think anything I want to think, what is the upside to thinking that I'm broken and something's wrong with me? And when I started to think of myself as just like this creative masterpiece, and I don't need to fix myself, I just get to create myself, I felt so much excitement. I felt creative. I felt joy. I felt appreciation for myself. And then all of a sudden, I started to show up in such a way that was confirming a whole new story about myself. Because just the thought, I am broken, something's wrong with me, that is the problem. That's what's broken, that thought. You, in and of yourself, you're never broken. Everybody listening to this are amazing works of art. But if you think you're broken, you're going to prove that true to yourself over and over again. So that's what we do within my school. We get rid of the belief that we're broken. And now what? Who do you want to be? How do you want to create yourself? And then we begin to work on that.
You know, it's a great point. It's something I've learned that words matter.
Yeah.
And one of the things I stopped doing personally, I could share with my audience is I stopped using the phrase, well, it's hard, it's
Mm,
tough, it's a problem. Instead, changing my mindset and saying, and being solutionary oriented and saying, okay, let's double down on this and figure out how to make it better, how to solve the challenge that we're discussing.
yeah.
And especially in commercial real estate, the line of work I'm in, there's a lot of challenges you have to deal with. And
Hmm.
being solution oriented. And so words do matter. The words you put in your mind are so important. I preach it a lot and I believe in it. And that's why I'm so engaged with what you teach. And I hope you would open up the spectrum to men. I know you teach a lot
Yes.
of women, but I believe a lot. I After all the knowledge I have about you, I said, man, this would be really good for men. I think I'm gonna help her and say, I think we have to open a line of division for folks like me
Yeah.
because the value you offer and the words you use is so important. And so I really appreciate what you just shared with us because and that's why I opened that with you because it really resonates with me because it's something that I consistently work on as I watch the words I use and
Hmm.
put in my mind so I could be the best version of myself. And
Yeah.
is that something that you're when a lady comes into your sphere, is that the goal is to say, I want to help you become the best version of yourself? Is that
Yeah.
what this is about?
Yeah. I want to help people live extraordinary lives. And the only way to live extraordinary life is to realize that there's extraordinary within you. And so for me, it's like helping not only I coach a lot of my male entrepreneurs and my masterminds and things. And so this work is applicable to everyone. I just happen my niche in my business are women. But yeah, it's like if you want to do extraordinary things, you have to be extraordinary. And it's within each of us. But I wanted to say something as you were talking earlier because it's so true, Ben. Like words are so powerful. And one of the things that I've been seeing a lot is our resistance to our own humanness. I was just coaching one of the gals in my mastermind, and she's an entrepreneur. And she was telling me that she's just got so much doubt. And I'm like, you do know that this is normal. You do know that this is actually not a problem. This is just part of being a human, especially a human entrepreneur. And just hearing that and realizing, oh, doubt's not something I need to fix. I can keep taking action. I can keep showing up. She had so much relief because a lot of times what we do is we have anxiety, doubt, worry, and we think, oh, I need to fix this in order to show up. And I don't think that's true. I think you can show up in all of your humanness and do extraordinary things.
It's really creating your environment to become that person.
Yeah.
And using words and your mindset is so important. And we all go through that, whether it's fear or love, and picking what side of the ledger do I want to spend my time on. And I choose love.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, I was always on the fear side, whether it's anxiety or angry
Yeah.
or fighting, or, the list goes on and on. And I had to realize that. And so I think what you teach is wonderful. And it's something I appreciate because I had to realize and take a step back, like, how do I become the best version of myself? And it's a lot of what you share with the women you teach. So I think it's fantastic. By the way, your personal story, Tonya, is so inspiring to me.
Mhm.
Okay. It really touches me. And, and by the way, correct me if I have any details that are incorrect. Okay.
Okay.
Because I really read this and it just blew me away. You grew up in a trailer on a dirt road.
Yep.
Okay. You started a family. You were very young when you started your
18.
family,
Yeah.
which is great. And not recognizing yourself in the mirror at one point. Share more with everyone about your background. I think it's so important, and also about the transformation that you went through to lead to where you are today, which leads me of why what you teach is so powerful, because you've been through it.
Mm.
You can talk the talk. So go ahead and share with everyone your background.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to share this. I'm going to try to do it as condensed and full of brevity as possible. But I think it is important because we can look at people that we think are so successful and we don't see all that they've had to go through. We just see maybe the finished product. And I think it's important for us that have been fortunate enough to create success to share our failures and to share where we came from so that people know, hey, listen, if this gal can do it, what's wrong with me? Like I for sure can do it. So my story is I grew up in the deep South Bible Belt. I grew up Pentecostal holiness. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but basically I couldn't wear makeup. I couldn't go to the movies. I couldn't go to dances. I basically couldn't do anything that was fun. It was considered sinful. And I got married at 18 because when you grow up that way, you're always like trying to escape it. So I thought the best way to escape it was to get married. And turns out that was not the best way, but I did get married. I went to nursing school. I had my daughter when I was 22. And in all of that time span, I gained a lot of weight. I was over 200 pounds. And I just like lost myself. When I tell you, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, who are you? Like, what happened to that little girl who used to dream of travel? Like, even though my family had never traveled, I remember I used to go and look at Vogue magazines and Travel and Leisure magazine when we were in the Piggly Wiggly as when I was a little girl. And I just dreamed. I was like, I don't know of anyone that lives this life, but I would love to live that kind of life. And I just lost sight of my dreams. And I'll never forget one night I was working as a nurse in the intensive care unit. This doctor turned to me and he said, Tonya, who do you want to be? And I thought it was such an odd question. And all I could say, Ben, was like, I want to be a good mom, a good wife, and a good nurse. Like that's the only, I thought that's who I was supposed to be. That's how I was raised. And he said, I'm not talking about like the roles you play. Like, who do you want to be as a woman? And I couldn't answer him. First of all, I didn't realize I had a choice. I thought identity was just who you were. You couldn't change it. But I could not stop thinking about that question. So I was driving home the next morning thinking, who do I want to be? You have to keep in mind, I had a thick Southern accent. I never traveled. I was a country bumpkin, and I was overweight, and I just felt stuck, right? So when the word came to mind of who I wanted to be, it was laughable. I'm like, that's never who I've been or who I can be. And the word was, I wanted to be worldly. I wanted to be a worldly woman. And I think it's because I grew up thinking that worldly women, I don't know, they seem sophisticated, they seem to be at home in the world. And that's something that I wanted for myself. But also, the church I grew up in told me that to be a worldly woman was a sin. So there was a lot of internal conflict. But I just started thinking about, what if I could be a worldly woman? And I will tell you, having that question, what if I could be a worldly woman, at the forefront of my life and just playing around with it, completely changed the trajectory of my life. Because I started to think about, what would a worldly woman read? Is she reading like how to lose 10 pounds in 10 days? Is that what she's reading? No. Like, I imagine she was reading books about design and travel. And so I remember one day I got rid of every diet book. I'm like, I don't want books on my shelf that remind me that I'm broken. I want bookshelves, or a bookshelf that's what a worldly woman would have. So every time I would look at it, it would reconfirm this new identity that I was working on. And over time, I realized that I had become a worldly woman. All of a sudden, I'm like leading retreats in Paris. I'm traveling. I went to sommelier school, completely reinvented myself based off of that one question. Who do you
Wait,
want
did
to
you
be?
say you went to sommelier
I
school?
went to sommelier school.
Wow, that's pretty neat. I love that.
Even though I grew up where it was a sin to drink wine, I was never around wine until I was in my 20s. And I decided I wanted to go to sommelier school. Yeah.
When I read about your background, I always think of the movie Footloose. You
Yes.
know, you were that girl that the pastor was holding down her life, and she wanted to get out of the town. And so
Yeah.
I see a lot of congruency in your story with that movie. So I
So
always wanted to tell you that, and say you are the lead actress of Footloose.
Oh, I love it. I'm
That's
honored.
right.
Yeah.
So why is it, do you think, that so many people do not believe they have the power to choose who to become? Is
Yeah.
it
You
is it
know,
cultural? Is it fear? I mean, or is it something else? I mean, what do you see the backdrop is with that?
that's such a great question. I don't even think anyone's ever asked me that, but what instantly came to mind is that when you've had a certain identity and you have practiced it for so long, those neural pathways are deep. And so you really believe, this is who I am. And then you have your environment, the people that have known you forever, constantly reconfirming, yep, that's who you are. And so it can feel as if you are stuck in this identity, but it's only because you keep living from your past. You
So,
keep looking towards your past as to what you should think about yourself. You keep looking towards your past as to what should be possible for you. And the only way to change that is to begin to use your imagination and start to think and live from your future. And it's not easy, but I've seen and helped thousands of people do it. Yeah.
what are some of the tricks you show people? Because I've learned too, like all of us. I'm 52 years old. I've had 52 years of limiting beliefs going on. I've
Yeah.
had to spend a long time eliminating those limited beliefs. What are some of your traits or tricks that you do with the women you work with to at least mitigate or help get over or eliminate these limiting beliefs so they could progress and move forward in their lives?
Yeah. So sometimes women will come to me and they're like, I don't even know who I want to be. And so what I have found to be the best first step before we even start working on thoughts or anything is to set an extraordinary goal for yourself. Like, set a goal for yourself that scares you, and right now you think it's absolutely impossible for you to achieve, and it is for who you are today. But I find that that goal is going to give you direction as to who you need to be. And the other thing that it's going to do, the moment you set it, because some people don't even know what they're thinking. Some people don't even know what they believe about themselves. Like they're just walking around with lots of thoughts in their head without even questioning them. So the moment you set that goal for yourself, I promise you what's going to happen is all of those limiting beliefs are going to come up. And that's a beautiful thing because that's exactly what you need to work through. It's a good thing. I tell my women, I'm like, when this happens, like, don't think it's a bad thing. Like, you are directly being shown exactly what's holding you back. And so once those beliefs come up, you can begin to see, oh, this is exactly why I keep repeating this pattern. This is exactly why nothing seems to change because I keep proving myself true. And so we have to decide who's the version of you that's achieved this extraordinary goal.
Mm.
I think about for me, like when I first started my business, your self-image is basically like an internal thermostat. So you will subconsciously always try to stay within whatever setting you've programmed it for. And so for me, when I first started my business, coming from nursing, like the most I could conceive of making, it was $100,000 a year. Like that was my internal thermostat.
Right.
And I could take a lot of action, but I would always come back to like 75,000. Like that was like it. And I realized I had to literally birth a new version of me. I had to get to know, at first it was just the six-figure version of me. Like, who is she? How does she think? How does she show up? How does she live? How does she dress? Who surrounds her? And I had to become that version of me before the six figures came. And then I've done it with seven figures. I'm working on it with eight figures, right? Same thing with weight. No matter what it is that you want to achieve, you need to get to know that version of you. And you need to practice being him or her before the result comes because it can't come until you are a match for it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. No,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Um, can you share more about the power you see style as having a change in changing self-image and why it's so overlooked and underappreciated?
Yeah. Let's just talk about your outfit.
Well, who am I then? Okay.
No, I love it. I
Okay.
love what you have on. I'm just saying,
Well,
like,
you're talking to a man who for years, decades, Tanya, one of
mhm,
my mentors when I was young. Okay. And you want to talk about putting a belief in my head
mhm.
subconsciously? He said, if you want to be wildly successful, you wear a suit every day, tie,
Oh,
handkerchief, shoes are polished.
mhm.
I throw in the vest now and then, like really, like I'd walk in the office. And I'll tell you what was interesting about it was when I was wearing a suit in my office, people would start, forget the pun, follow suit. They would
Yeah.
start dressing nice. Like I had this like presence about it. And so
Mhm.
now I'm a lot different. Now I dress down like this. So,
But I think it's not even about, like, judging what you have on. I think what you have on is amazing. What I mean is that we all need to think about how do we wanna perceive ourselves, and how do we want to be perceived by others? And are we thinking about ourselves in such a way, and are we presenting ourselves in such a way? So when you think about you, for example, like, how do you want people to perceive you?
relaxed, calm,
Yeah,
great leadership,
yeah.
high integrity, uh, direct,
Mhm.
uh, gives 120%, very authentic, doesn't
Yeah.
sugarcoat, tries to un unpeel the onion and just be himself, and that's who I am. But I wasn't like that all the time. I had when I was younger in commercial real estate, they always said fake it till you make it. So you had to build up this house of cards in order to be able to get to this point, and now it's a lot different, my mindset. And so, but it was a lot of battling through that image. And I thought, when we're talking, I thought it's so important your dress because I look at you, look how polished you are. I mean, if you walk in a room with that outfit and you're done up and you're a beautiful woman, you're going to command the room. And so your self-image to me is very important because you're right, it does portray who you are,
Yeah,
so to
and, like,
speak.
with your like, when you were talking about down to earth and authentic, like, you can look at yourself and say, "Does this represent, like, how I wanna be perceived?" Because 'Cause I'm all for, like, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I'm all about doing it on purpose, and I find that a lot of people aren't doing that. right? They're not choosing their clothing on purpose. They're just choosing clothing based on habit, based on how they've seen themselves. I always like to ask people, I'm like, does your closet represent who you've been or who you're becoming? Because we can use clothes to change how we see ourselves.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. I love that. So, a key tenet of philosophy is think highly of yourself, full of self-respect and self-love.
Hmm.
I believe it's often hard for people, Tonya, to just do if they're having issues with their feeling of self-worth, which is a challenge for people. Do you agree with that? And how do you approach that when coaching women?
Yeah. I just did a 5-day workshop called The Worthy Woman because I find that when it comes to worth, what I find is that we're trying to earn it, right? We're like, oh, when I get that degree, when I make this certain amount of money, when I've jumped through all of these hoops, then I will be worthy. And what I've come to understand is you cannot outperform your self image. I'm going to say that it's like you can't outperform your self image. And so it's about learning what these beliefs are and changing them now, not when you've achieved certain things, because you believing that you're not worthy and deserving is going to push away the very things that you want. And I just have this belief that we're all equally worthy. No one's
Right.
better than or less than anybody. I don't care if you're the homeless man on the street, you are just as worthy as I am. I've made different choices, but our innate worth, we all come at, can you imagine looking at a baby and saying, you're not worthy?
Right. No, it you tarnish someone by doing that, and
No. And
that's
all
why
that
words
baby
are
is
so
doing is,
important.
yeah, all that baby is doing is crying and eating and pooping and sleeping. And
That's
we
right.
think that baby is so worthy. Like that baby doesn't have to earn its worth. But as adults, we're programmed to believe like we have to earn it. And so we go after our goals from a place of not enoughness. We're trying to get our enoughness from achievement, and it just doesn't work. It might, for temporarily, you might feel like, oh, I did a good job. I'm enough. But then inevitably, you're going to set a bigger goal and you're going to feel like you're not enough.
So you've been coaching women for a while now. Can you share some of your success stories that you've
Oh my
had with some of them
goodness.
based on your teachings?
Oh my goodness. It's going to like send you to my website. But yeah, weight loss, more money, better careers, better relationships, better quality of life. Like it, so many thousands and thousands of success stories, all by changing your self image.
What Let's talk about relationships. When
Mhm.
you're coaching these women, I'm sure it's got to be a hot topic.
Yeah.
It's a topic for all of us working on different relationships we have, whether it's personal, business, you name it. What is it that causes, in your estimation, issues that you see with your clients in their relationships? What are some key factors you see, or sort of the number one causes going on, or and what are the those issues that are happening that are people are not feeling fulfilled or not feeling loved? What are you seeing with your clients that you could share that people can learn
Yeah.
from?
Well, I can tell you the two biggest, excuse me, issues that I see causing problems in relationships. So, the first one would be lack of boundaries, women not setting boundaries around what's acceptable in their world. And the second would be what I call emotional outsourcing. So, emotional outsourcing is basically saying, hey, Ben, you should behave differently so that I feel better.
Hmm.
And this is what adults are doing all of the time, which makes it so dysfunctional. Versus, Ben, you do what you need to do to make you happy. And I'm going to be over here taking care of my own emotional needs. Now, I can make requests from you, but at the end of the day, if that request doesn't feel good to you, I want you to say no to it because I want you to honor you. And it may be that we're not a great fit, and that's okay. But never been, you need to change to make me happy. And that's the number one reason why I see so many people struggle in relationships.
So the lesson is be happy and content with yourself. Work on yourself.
Yes.
And if your relationship with that person is a fit, great. And what if that person on the other side needs to work on their self? Because let's just say you're growing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you have a relationship and you're growing and the other person isn't growing. And and obviously, like we just touched on, you should love yourself and work on your self-worth and your image. But the other person isn't willing to do that. So are
Yeah.
you advising saying, well, that's just not a good fit for you? Find someone
Not
that
necessarily.
is, or well, then what do you advise in something like that,
That's
in that
like me.
situation?
So that's like me saying, like my mother, for example, she's not
Mm-hmm.
interested in this work. She's the same since I started doing this work, but I love my mother. I'm going to be like, Mom, we're no longer a good fit. Right? Sorry,
Well,
Mom.
I'm talking about like a relate. Let's say your spouse. Okay,
Okay.
let's
Yeah.
say you had a challenge with your spouse
Hmm.
and you're going through it and you're personally growing, but your
Yeah.
spouse isn't, and you're
Hmm.
outgrowing each other.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
what do you advise your clients in a situation like that?
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, because that's something I get a lot too. And what I can say to that is that you have to decide. Because there have been some women who are like, listen, I love my husband. Like, he's not growing, but I still love him. I want to keep the family together. And I'm like, as long as you like your reason, then you're going to have to be okay with him being him. You can't try to change him. You're going to have to just let Larry be Larry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some women are like, I just don't want that. Like, I want to find someone who's an energetic match. And as long as you like your reason for whatever you decide to do, then make that decision. But at the end of the day, we have to be accountable for our own emotional state. And so there have been many times that I've let relationships go, but it wasn't because they weren't making me happy. It's just that it's almost like your energies are just no longer a match and that person just sort of fades out of your life, right? Because there's
Right,
just nothing
right.
holding you together any longer.
No, that's a great point. Is having that energy with someone else
Yeah.
and feeling comfortable with them and being accountable for your own emotions. It's like the story of, someone told me a story where a gentleman gets in a car accident and his family comes up into the hospital with him and he's in agony pain and he's complaining and he's saying, he's not going to live much longer. And instead of reframing it and creating an emotional state saying, well, I might lose my leg, but at least I didn't die, and really changing your mind, and your emotional state is everything in your
Yeah.
mind. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. If you could change your emotional state, whether it's with your relationships, business, you're walking in a meeting and you create that positive state, it's your whole world changes.
Mhm.
People, and that's why I have like a morning routine where I wake up because I want to be in that great emotional state. And I
Mhm.
think it's such a powerful thing. What about coaching these women is the most rewarding for you?
Mhm. Before we go to that, I do want to offer one more thing about relationships. It just came to me.
Yes.
I think
Keep
it's a
going.
great question to ask. Do you see this person in your future? Or would you
Mm,
choose this person again from the
wow.
person you are today?
Wow.
And the
So
reason why,
after you've developed into the person you are, your authentic
yeah,
self, you take a step back and say, okay, is this the relationship that I would want
yeah,
knowing who I am today?
yeah.
Wow,
In
that's
fact,
powerful.
evaluating your whole life from that place. It's like, would I choose this shirt again? Would I choose this business again? Would I choose this team again? Would I choose this friend again from the person I am now? That doesn't mean if you were like to say no, doesn't mean you have to get rid of everybody, but it's just good to know what the answer to that question is. And because I was in a relationship, a long term relationship let's see, 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And it was during the pandemic. And I asked myself, like, would I choose this relationship again? And the answer was no. And I
Mm.
left. And it was so hard to do. But I knew deep down in my heart, like, this doesn't belong in my future, this situation. And so I think that's a really good question for your audience to think about with relationships. And just because you're honest with yourself and you say, no, I wouldn't choose it again, doesn't mean you have to leave. And I think a lot of times people aren't honest with themselves because they're afraid that if they are, then they're going to be forced to leave. But being honest with yourself is one of the first ways to change. So we have to be willing to be like, no, I wouldn't leave. I wouldn't choose this relationship again, but I'm going to choose it today only because I'm afraid,
Well,
right?
let's
Being
let's
honest.
let's talk about that then, because if you ask that question, which is a
Mhm.
phenomenal question, by the way, is you ask that question and the answer is no,
Mhm.
what do you do? Okay, so say you were coaching me. What's next? What's the solution to that? Because
Yeah,
if you're like, well, I'm not going to change it,
right.
so are you repeating the same patterns that those beliefs or those issues, those underlying root experiences that are holding you back?
No, because then I think what you would have to do, Ben, is just be honest, be like, no, I'm not leaving. And the question would be why? And that's again where you get to be honest with yourself. And you could say, because I'm not brave enough right now. I'm too afraid. And then you sit with that for a while and you're like, wow, do I want to live my life out of fear? And eventually that can help you get to where you want to be. But we have to be honest with ourselves. And it's okay to say, I wouldn't choose this person again, but I'm going to choose it again just because I'm afraid right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you talk about a lot in your coaching about owning your future, like we just touched on a little bit. I'm curious, are there any big or new things you have planned for the future with what you're doing with your
Oh my
clients?
goodness. Yes. Always. We
Can
always
you,
have big
can you
things.
share some of the things you're working on, or what the excitement that women out there can foresee in the future working with you?
Yeah, so I have a membership and we are always looking at how we can up level that experience.
Hmm.
So that's always at the forefront because my big mission is in the next 3 years to collect 5,000 after stories. So I love before and afters. And
Hmm.
so we are well on our way to collecting 5,000 documented after stories of women who have completely reinvented themselves from this work. I'm also working on some other projects that I'm not at liberty to talk about right now, but
Okay.
super big, super exciting. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And as you know, the name of the show is I Own It. It's really being responsible for everything in your life.
Mhm.
Was there a time that you could look back and say, I just didn't own it at this point in my life? And when was it? What was it?
Mm. Such a great question. And there are many, many times. Um, Let me think about one. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is there have been times that I didn't own my emotions. Like I was in this habit of blaming the world, a lot of it blaming my upbringing for why I was the way I was and why I was where I was. I blamed the church and the religion. And I will tell you that when I stopped blaming and I took my power back and I retold my story, that's when I got all of my freedom back, all of it. So I think that's one example of me not owning it. But I think another example is I think, especially as entrepreneurs in the early days, I can't speak for everyone. I will tell you for me, I was in a habit of abdicating power. Like, you fix this.
Hmm.
You're better at business than me. You're smarter than me. So let me just hand this to you and you take care of it. And it just made me feel very powerless in my business. And I wasn't owning being a CEO. I wasn't like stepping into that and literally like seeing myself as a CEO, having that self image. And when I started to do that work, that's when my company started to scale as well. So those are the two things that come to mind when you ask that question.
Hmm. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, being empowered and creating a story that you can step into with your empowerment is so important these days. And that goes with, controlling your mind.
Yeah.
And it's challenging at times, but if you can control your mind, you can control your emotions, and you can be more aware, and your communication improves.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful lesson you teach, and keep teaching it, because I believe whether you're a man, a woman, anyone in the world, it's things that we have to double down on and really overcome as a society. And so I think it's really important that we all work on that, and
Yeah.
we always look to improve. So we're going to wrap up with our three questions, okay?
Okay.
And if you were in studio, in our Laguna Beach studio, we have a couch. And I would say, Tonya, lay on the couch, close your eyes, look back, and you are this sophisticated, intelligent, successful woman now. And you can go back to when you were 16 years old, and you can go talk to yourself.
Mm.
What are you telling yourself? What kind of advice would you give, that you can share with your 16-year-old self, that you learn, that you can go back and say, this is what I want to talk to you about?
Yeah. I would tell her so much, but the big one would be don't be afraid to fail. Fail a lot. Like that would be the biggest thing because I think for me I was so afraid of failure that I didn't take the risk, and now I realize, I can't remember who said it, but success is built on a mountain of failures. The more you're willing to fail, the quicker you're going to be successful. So I would definitely tell her, like, embrace failure, like look for it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
You have to fail to be successful in business, and fail often.
Yes.
And that's where the fear factor comes into play, because if you can eliminate, or not even eliminate, just manage the
Mhm.
fear. If
Mhm.
you can manage your emotions, just imagine what you can do.
Yeah.
So uh, it's our last day on earth.
Mhm.
God forbid. We're sharing our last meal together.
Yes.
It's your choice. What are we eating?
Are you kidding? This is the question I always ask my friends. I
Well,
know
maybe it was meant to be. We're supposed to be on this
I
together.
just
This
answered
is
this
now I'm
question.
answering. I'm asking you now. You're on the spot. You got to
I
answer it now,
love this
and your
question.
friends don't have to answer it. Now you do,
I
Tanya.
know
So
this.
go
I
ahead.
know it like this. I would have pumpkin ravioli with sage butter sauce.
Ooh.
I would have a filet, like a
Mm.
petite filet,
Uh-huh.
medium with peppercorn sauce, a
Wow.
delicious salad, and my mom's homemade coconut cake.
Oh my God. What do we? What do, I would have that today. That sounds
Right.
amazing.
Like, I don't wanna
What?
have to die to
Yeah.
have it. Like, I feel like we could
No,
arrange
I
it
would
right
have that
now.
every. That's tremendous. What are we washing that down with? What are we drinking?
Oh, red wine.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
shots enough to pop.
I forgot you're a sommelier,
Yeah.
so you're right. Okay.
Yes.
You had me at hello. I love that. All right. So in our studio, you can't see it, like we have a drum set behind me, a grand piano, and 6 electric guitars. And you're sitting in studio with me. And by the way, you're always welcome to come back and be in studio. I think it would be tremendous to have you in studio. And you can have any band or musician, they could be alive or deceased, that can play a song for us in the studio with us.
Mhm.
Who is it that's coming in and playing us a song? Your choice.
100% Prince, Purple Rain.
Wow. We had someone else mention that too. I think that would be fantastic. And he
Yes,
could play the piano too, and the guitar.
all of it. Yes,
Wow.
and we would have shots enough to pop and pumpkin ravioli while he does it.
Awesome. All right. Deal. We're done.
I love it.
So our audience knows, and everyone out there in the world knows how to follow you. What is the best way to follow you and stay engaged with you and learn? There's a lot of women out there, I feel, from all the homework I've done on what you do, that really could utilize your services. I believe that you serve a lot of great people, and you offer a tremendous amount of value to women. And I hope someday you open the door to teach men, because I feel some of your teachings are very applicable to men, and some of it's even more applicable to men that we have to deal with some of the challenges we go through in life. So
Yeah.
what is the best way to engage with you and follow you?
Yeah, so you can go to schoolofselfimage.com. But if you want to like get personal and see what we're doing day to day, just go over to Instagram at Tonya Leigh. So TonyaleIGH. You can find me there.
Great. Well, thank you, Tonya, for
Thank
joining us
you.
today. If you are interested in learning more about the Ben Reinberg I Own It podcast, drop kick that right hand lower button and click subscribe. Like any episode you want on YouTube. We are on all different social media platforms. If you want to learn more about me personally, go to www.benreinberg.com. And if you want to learn more about my company, Alliance CGC, go to alliancecgc.com to learn all about commercial real estate. We have a brand new medical property fund that we just launched. And shortly, I will be teaching commercial real estate around the world from A to Z how you can invest in commercial real estate and build your wealth in your commercial real estate empire. So, Tonya Leigh, what a privilege to have you on the show today. Thank you for all the knowledge that you've dropped with us. And I hope to see you soon and have a wonderful holiday season to you and your family. And thanks again for joining us on the I Own
Thank
It
you.
podcast.
Thank you so much.